Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
The Agriculture Department is relocating employees at many of its component agencies. That includes staff at the Food and Nutrition Service, which carries out SNAP and other food assistance programs used by tens of millions of Americans. But many FNS employees say they would sooner quit their jobs than relocate, according to an internal poll conducted by their union. Federal News Network's Jory Heckman has more. Jory, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Terry. Thanks for having me.
What is the plan for Food and Nutrition Services?
Well, first things first, they're going to go through a name change. That's about the least impactful change under all of this. They would be rebranded from the Food and Nutrition Service to the Food and Nutrition Administration. But more significantly, a lot of their employees are going to be moved to other parts of the country. According to plans that we saw last month, FNS is planning to shut down their headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia, and a couple of their regional headquarters across the country in major cities like Chicago, Boston, Atlanta, and San Francisco. And they are going to move folks to other hubs. These are largely the hubs that USDA already identified last year as part of plans to move more than half of their headquarters employees outside of the Beltway. And this would really be people all over the place here. Employees who work for SNAP would be moving to Indianapolis. People who work in child nutrition programs would move to Dallas, Texas. Supplemental nutrition and safety program staff would move to Kansas City. And research programs employees would move to Raleigh, North Carolina. So a significant reimagining of where USDA employees live and work. It's worth pointing out that about 90% of the USDA workforce already lives outside of the National Capital Region. This would move that number up higher.
The union did a survey of the employees here. What did they come back with in terms of findings?
Yeah, so a local chapter of the National Treasury Employees Union represents these Food and Nutrition Service employees. And what they found is that based on the respondents who took the survey, the vast majority of them say they would not move if they are asked to do so. And about 80% of employees responded that way on the survey. Now, a couple of caveats here. Not every FNS employee took the survey, but the union says that about a third of the FNS workforce took the survey. And of that, an overwhelming number said that they would not move. So they say that that's a pretty good indication of how the rest of the FNS workforce feels about this. According to the union officials that I spoke to, some of them said that even some of the people who agreed to move say that they are still on the lookout for other jobs, that even if they agree to move, they may not stay with that job for the long term. They may try to figure out something else to do in the long term.
Jory, what impact would this have on FNS's ability to accomplish its mission if they lost, say, 25 to 30% of their workforce, maybe even higher?
Well, with the past being precedent here, there was a pretty significant reduction of employees the last time the Trump administration tried to carry this out. That being the first Trump administration. They tried to move a significant number of employees, hundreds of employees at the Economic Research Service and the National Institute of Food and Agriculture to Kansas City. This was all attempted back in 2019. And a lot of staff, about 85% of staff who were asked to move, either quit their jobs or retired rather than relocate. And that had a significant impact on the mission for those agencies. They had to hire up people because no one was really moving to Kansas City to carry out the job. And so the union suspects that this would be a similar type consequence under what may be to come here. That they say that if a significant number of employees choose to leave FNS, then that means that there are fewer employees on the job to calculate SNAP overpayments or underpayments. They would also have fewer people on the job to issue grants to nonprofits and other organizations and issue funding for disaster assistance when emergencies do arise. This is a portfolio of programs that are very public-facing. They cover about 82 million Americans who, in some way, shape, or form, rely on FNS programs.
These programs got a lot of attention during the government shutdown last year, in fact, for the number of people who are who receive these kind of benefits. Does USDA have anything to say about whether or not they feel this is a risk worth taking?
So USDA didn't get back to me immediately for this story. However, in recent stories about this, they did tell me that they suspect that FNS and its 16 federal food aid programs will have no disruption as they look to carry out this reorganization. USDA Deputy Secretary Stephen Vaden told lawmakers last year that he's well aware of the high attrition that happened at USDA under the first Trump administration, but he says this time around, with there being so many federal employees out of work, that he suspects that many of them will choose to relocate rather than take their chances finding new work in the DC metro area. It's one thing to point out here that according to the union officials they spoke to, they pushed back on one key piece of USDA's explanation for all of this. USDA has said that this reorganization is really all about bringing USDA employees closer to the customers that they serve, farmers, ranchers, people who work in rural development. And they say that by and large, FNS is not that. They very rarely have a public-facing presence in their communities. These are largely office jobs. They usually do most of their work on the computer. In some rare cases, there are teams that go out to investigate cases where there may be alleged SNAP fraud or some other investigation, but that's the minority example, and that by and large, these are people who work in office jobs and don't interact with the public in that way.
Jory, what about the folks who represent those beneficiaries, the folks who may be on SNAP programs or other food assistance programs? Have they expressed any concern about this?
I heard from Hunger Free America, a nonprofit that works in this space, and they also pointed out that this is all happening roughly around the time that FNS is carrying out significant changes to SNAP eligibility that occurred under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that passed last summer. USDA staff are at work implementing those changes, and they say a exodus of staff at FNS is just exactly the wrong thing that they don't want to be experiencing right now. They say that they need as many people on board to carry out those changes as possible. And so they are concerned about what this would mean for the Food and Nutrition Service.
I guess time will tell as it actually plays out.
We'll have to see.
That's Federal News Network's Jory Heckman. Jory, thanks for bringing us this story.
Thanks, Terry.
You can find the full story at federalnewsnetwork.com.